Hi everyone, Dave Bradshaw here alongside RevPro owner and matchmaker Andy Quildan. We've just come off air live in Southampton, and of course we are less than 3 weeks away from the 14-year anniversary of RevPro at the OVO Arena, Wembley on August 29th, and there have been several exciting developments in that regard here this afternoon. Let's start with our main event for Wembley, the undisputed British Heavyweight Championship. Michael Oku against Connor Mills. Those two had yet another run-in today as tensions continue to rise. And what was shocking, I thought, at the end, we said this on commentary as well, was that when push came to shove, literally, Michael Oku was more interested in doing more damage to Connor Mills than he was on checking on the welfare of Amira, who'd been knocked down.
Yeah, Michael Oku's obsessed with Connor Mills, and it is so ironic that when you think about the rivalry between Michael Oku and Leon Slater, the whole focal point of it was he's in your head, and it went both ways with Oku and Slater, but now we really see what it's like for someone to be in Michael Oku's head. Just forgot about the welfare of Amira altogether and went for Connor Mills. And I think that one of the most striking things for me is we're back in Southampton, we're back in the 1865. This is the exact venue when Michael Oku and Connor Mills met for the first time in a Revolution Pro Wrestling ring back in 2020. And this is the same venue, March of 2020, just before the world went crazy. Maybe it was February of 2020, the end of February 2020, just before the world went crazy. And you almost saw as Connor Mills had an unconscious Michael Oku, he picked him up with that belt around his waist, strapped that belt up, and then gave him that spinning kick to the back of the head in the exact same manner he did with that undisputed British Cruiserweight Championship all those years ago, 6 years ago. And it's, like we say, it's 6 years in the making. It's coming to a head August 29th, live from the OVO Arena, Wembley. And I think, as we saw from today's show, there's lots of things which are starting to come to a head.
Yeah, speaking of which, let's talk about the undisputed British Women's Championship as well, because we had a real war of words and then a physical war as well between Kanji and the woman she will challenge for the undisputed British Women's Championship, Alexis Falcon, tonight. What do you make about that? I thought that couldn't reach any more of a boiling point than it already had, but I think I was proved wrong today.
Look, I think it'd be remiss of me not to mention Corey Zero, first of all, because that contest between Kanji and Corey Zero is something you should go out your way to see. But yeah, Kanji and Alexis Falcon is another deeply bitter and personal rivalry. And this is very different to Michael Oku and Connor Mills. Kanji and Alexis Falcon have never liked each other. They couldn't be more opposite from one another. And it's almost like they're destined. They've been destined since day one to fight each other. They represent completely different things when it comes to professional wrestling, when it comes to lifestyle, everything wrapped around that. And you know, they say opposites attract, but I think this is the opposite in this situation, because it went to another level tonight, and you saw both women with a war of words with each other, and you saw a very, very determined challenger, and it really feels, you heard the crowd here tonight in the 1865. Kanji's our champion. She's certainly the people's champion, but that's never been in debate. She's been a people's champion for a long, long time, but as Alexis Falcon will tell you, it's not about what the people think. It's about the gold you carry, and the material possession Alexis Falcon has is that undisputed British Women's Championship. As far as she's concerned, Kanji is always the nearly girl of Revolution Pro Wrestling.
Now, someone who is not a nearly person, because they've won a championship before, is Nino Bryant. And again, much like we had with Kanji and Alexis Falcon, we had another exchange between Nino Bryant and Leighton Buzzard, the current champion. Again, those two are going to go head-to-head August 29th as well. What did you make of that? Because I thought what Leighton Buzzard had to say about Nino Bryant and his time as a Cruiserweight champion, implying that he wasn't a champion that RevPro could be proud of, because saying, oh, finally, we've got one that can be. I thought that was shockingly disrespectful.
I think it tells you a lot about Leighton Buzzard's mindset. You know, you sat next to Leighton Buzzard at the announce desk, and you saw Leighton Buzzard. He was scouting talent when he was injured on the shelf. He was scouting talent. You saw him take Cameron Kai under his wing and try and lead him towards that Cruiserweight Championship. And listen, I think that Leighton Buzzard has got a real disdain for, should we say, style points in professional wrestling, because he believes it's just about getting the job done. And look, factually, that is what it's all about. That there's no reason you can't do it with a bit of respect. Respect for your fellow opponent, respect for the fans, respect for the art form that is professional wrestling, and not to try and taint it with underhanded tactics. But Leighton Buzzard, obviously has looked at it and said, we shouldn't be shaking hands. We shouldn't be patting each other on the back. You know, we shouldn't, there's nothing wrong with going into a contest with a bit of a grudge with someone, and that's, he's well within his rights to have that opinion, but to literally dismiss all the cruiserweight champions that came before him and to kind of belittle their achievements, especially someone like Nino Bryant. And you think about everything Nino Bryant's achieved as undisputed British cruiserweight champion and just in RevPro in general. The first man to win the British J Cup twice. He did it 2 years on the bounce. That's history, Dave. That's something that Nino Bryant will carry that forever. Think about his legacy as undisputed British Cruiserweight champion, being endorsed by Jushin Thunder Liger, all the standing ovations, night in, night out. Again, that's legacy.
Is Buzzard jealous of that?
I think you'd have to ask him that. I think that...
Well, he would deny it, obviously, right?
I can see that. I can see him being jealous of that because I think Nino has the one thing... So, look, Leighton Buzzard has the gold, but Nino has the one thing that Leighton Buzzard doesn't have, and that's respect.
All right, now listen, we've been talking about the other 3 championships, so let's conclude here on our tour of the championships with the British tag team titles. We saw Cowboy Way, the new champions. They knew it's been 4 weeks now, but the first time they've been back in a RevPro ring, at least, since they won the titles. They've been defending internationally. They got a victory over the debuting Blockbusters here this afternoon in Southampton. And as I think a lot of people maybe suspected, but it was confirmed here today, they then laid down the challenge. Obviously, FTR still going to be at Wembley. They were going to face the Young Guns. They were left without opponents thanks to the injury to Ethan Allen. Cowboy Way say they want FTR at Wembley. Do you think you can make that happen?
Yes, absolutely. And there's one key piece of hardware that's going to make it very easy to make happen, and that is the undisputed British Tag Team Championships. We speak about FTR all the time. We speak about FTR and their legacy. Again, that's that legacy word. We speak about it all the time, and the fact that they are there as we talk about best teams in the world, but this is like kind of in a period of time, right? But FTR are within an argument of being one of the best teams of all time, and they're looking to further add credence to that statement, and to do that, winning championship gold in the UK would be a huge thing. We know they've won championship gold in every major organisation. They've won tag team championship gold in Japan as well with the IWGP tag team championships as well, and now they're looking to add British tag team gold to their mantle, so to speak, to further strengthen that claim of being the greatest team of all time. And they take their craft of professional wrestling very seriously. They're not going to back down from a challenge, especially one delivered in the manner that one called Manders and Thomas Shire issued that challenge, that profanity-laced challenge. It had me rolling my eyeballs on more than one occasion, and I'm not really sure where this attitude from the Cowboys has come from, because they were adored by the fans, and they had one bad result. And I know, look, I can understand the frustration with Manders 2 nights on the bounce getting those bad results, but the way it just flicked a switch in them was something else. So listen, I believe the Cowboys took a big gamble in putting their tag team championship gold on the line, but I also believe that is that golden carrot. That is what it takes to get the match in the ring. And August 29th, FTR versus Cowboy Way, it's going to be a hell of a tag team clash. And again, I've spoken a lot about, what it took to get Liam Slater in the ring versus Leon Slater, and I say, we do whatever we can to get matches in the ring, and you look at, what we can offer to make these matches happen, because that's my job. Get the match in the ring. And I think Cowboy Way have given all the incentive they need to FTR, and now it's going to be Cowboy Way's chance to put up or shut up, because this is a real opportunity for them to show the wrestling world what they're all about. They've made a lot of noise, but August 29th will be, like I say, put up or shut up time.
Well, listen, with all these shifting tectonic plates around the British tag title match at Wembley, the odd man out, if you like, has ended up being Luke Jacobs because of the injury to Ethan Allen. But Jacobs addressed today what he would like to do at Wembley. He issued an open challenge to anyone who wants to face him one-on-one on August 29th. First of all, what did you make of him issuing that challenge? And secondly, as matchmaker, can you confirm that open challenge will go ahead?
Yeah, so look, Luke Jacobs was fired up tonight. That match with Franco Fate, excellent match. Great debut from Franco. Great addition to the Revolution Pro Wrestling roster. And I think like you saw it there, the way he took the fight to Luke Jacobs. There's not many people who can take the fight to the former undisputed British heavyweight champion. And that's one thing that Luke Jacobs wanted to remind us tonight of exactly who he is and why he's where he is. You know, like you say, 2 years ago, when we were heading in to that anniversary show, it was Luke Jacobs who was in the position that Conor Mills is right now in facing Michael Oku for that undisputed British heavyweight championship and dethroning Michael Oku. And let's not forget, the reason why Luke Jacobs went so hard with the Young Guns is because he said, I want to take Michael Oku's legacy and shove it where the sun doesn't shine. And tonight he made an emphatic statement. He said he was a better tag team champion than Michael Oku ever was and ever could be. And he said that he's gonna be a heavyweight champion again. And it's time people start remembering exactly who Luke Jacobs is. And I want to stress, he had the option to pick another partner to compete against FTR. You know, it was his match to have. And he said, I won't do that unless I'm standing next to Ethan Allen. And I think that's very admirable of him. It's very courageous of him. And listen, will he get that open challenge? Absolutely. And I think one of the things that I liked most about what Luke Jacobs says is, I don't care if my opponent wants to keep it a secret until bell time or whether he wants to make himself known in advance. So I'm sure we're going to get a lot of applications over the next few days. And like I say, we'll do what we can to get the match in the ring. But I think as far as Luke Jacobs is concerned, he doesn't care about who the opponent is. And you know that when Luke Jacobs competes, he's got one thing in mind, and that's victory. And he goes 100% every single night. And it's going to be one hell of a match. Whoever steps up to face Luke Jacobs is going to be one hell of a fight on one hell of a night.
Now, one more piece of Wembley news tonight. There was a three-way match between three of the contenders, and what a victory it was for Isaac Murray. What an opportunity as a result of that, because Murray now is going to be entered into that Revolution Gauntlet match at Wembley with a chance to become the #1 contender for the undisputed British Heavyweight Championship. We also know that there's a scramble match to become #1 contender for the Women's Championship at Wembley. So Isaac Murray on the men's side, we know, is in. Can you tell us any more about people who are in on the men's or the women's side for those two matches?
Well, look, I felt like Isaac Murray, he earned his spot, and it's a great opportunity for him on the biggest. It's going to be the biggest night of his career, no doubt. But I think you saw nerves there from all three of the contenders in the early stages of that contest. And it was Isaac who I think was victorious by winning his way or working his way into the contest's best, I believe, you know. And then at the end of the day, it was lessons from mentors and old friends that were able to get Michael Oku the victory, namely that frog splash of Michael Oku's, and again the Chapman clutch from the late great Mad Curtis Chapman. So it was lovely to see Isaac, you know, that really when the chips are down, that's what you do. You go back to those past experiences, you go back to what you've been taught that brought you to the dance.
And muscle memory almost.
Yeah, absolutely. And it just seems so fitting that that's the way that contest ended. And especially given the fact that, like I say, how nervous all three men were. And listen, Isaac got away with it tonight, but, you know, he's not going to be able to get away with it August 29th at the OVO Arena, Wembley. As far as other names in that contest, let's save that till next week. We've given a lot of information out for free right here on the YouTube channel. So we'll save that for next week. But yeah, and yeah, the women's scramble, look, I'll give you a name. We're going to put Rio in that in there. It's very, very impressive tonight.
Great win today
against Sky Smithson. And on top of that, look, we spoke about how different things could be. She could have been in that Women's Grand Prix, you know, tiny margins.
Yeah.
And you saw what happened to Kanji. And again, they both Kanji and Rio could have been, but they said only one. Only one of us. So this is how we wound up where we were.
All right, so Rio's booked her ticket to Wembley. You're talking about next week, so let's focus on that briefly before I let you go. Next week, we are in Cardiff on Sunday, 16th of August for Unfinished Business at a new venue at the Tram Shed. Looking forward to being there. We know that there's several matches already announced. A Ring of Honor World Champion Bandido against Cameron Kai. It's Jay Joshua against Leon Cage, TK Cooper and David Francisco as well.
Smile on his face.
I can't stop smiling when I talk about that match. Anything else you can tell us about next week? What are you looking forward to the most?
We're going to put together, we're going to give this Flying Bryant Brothers and top tier trios match again.
Including James Ellis?
The returning James Ellis,
Oh.
he's healed miraculously. And I've got one or two questions about that cast of his. Because like I say, like they're telling me it's AI, but I say my spies have been telling me about James Ellis and his extracurricular activities in resorts such as Skegness and Bognor Regis. So, you know.
All right. Yeah, I've heard the same rumours.
Yeah.
So look, we can forgive us, I think, for being a little bit sceptical when it comes to the honesty of top tier. So we're going to get that in the ring. Anything else you can tell us about next week?
Just keep watching this space. We like to do things last minute here in RevPro, but you know, everyone's going to be in action. It's a last stop before Wembley. It's going to be huge. Unfinished business next Sunday, live from a tram shed in Cardiff. Like I say, like that big Bandido and Cameron Kai matchup is you know, it's almost like the cherry on the top of a proverbial cake. And like I say, so much more still to come this Sunday. We're literally one stop away now, so we've got that last stop, and then we're going straight in. We've got that week off and straight into the OVO Arena, Wembley. So it's time to start getting excited. It's time to start being excited, and it's time to start getting your tickets as well, because we need this. We need this more than anything, for everyone to come together, get their tickets, support Revolution Pro Wrestling, support independent professional wrestling, support British professional wrestling. Let's make a statement. August 29th. All-in weekend, Wembley Arena. Like I say, the distance between Wembley Arena and Wembley Stadium is probably closer than I have to walk to my car every morning I decide to leave the house. That's how close these two venues are. If you are in town, do not miss out on this history-making event. And by being a part of history, you're helping create more history, because it is going to help us grow, move forward, and take this thing to a whole nother level as we move on to, let's just call it the next chapter in Revolution Pro Wrestling. But our world continues. Let's not forget Portchester Hall 1 week after Wembley. Our world continues. You know, this is so important to stress this. This isn't the end. This is the beginning. Or another begin. I don't know. This is just it's a stop on our journey, and who knows how big we can take this.
Yeah, one chapter ends, another begins, and certainly there is something in the air like there never has been before. You felt it here in Southampton if you were here in person. Hopefully some of you will feel it next week in Cardiff at Unfinished Business as well. In the meantime, Andy, we'll let you go. Thank you as always for taking the time to join us after a busy afternoon here in Southampton. I've been Dave Bradshaw. We will see you next week in Cardiff for Unfinished Business.